Getting ready.
Okay, let me unmute. Okay,
Parking east of them.
we're ready.
Keep going.
Okay. Kurt, are we all? Yes. Yep, good morning. Thank you all. Good morning. Today is our Affordable Housing Advisory Board meeting called to order. We wanted to begin the meeting by calling to order, so good morning. And then I feel like we take a members' attendance. So let's begin with that. So, do we have Mark Bueller this morning?
Yeah.
Good morning. Andrew Gallagher.
Present.
Yes. Mario Fierro.
Present.
Christina Gentry, present. Hai Sung. Elizabeth O'Neill.
Present.
Monty Sokop.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Moving on to our next agenda item would be to pass that over to our administrator for the reading of the format.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Please state your name before speaking. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Virtual participants should use the raised hand function to indicate they wish to speak. Once your name is called, you will be unmuted and may turn on your video camera to provide your comments. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or to mute participants. The primary format for accessing or participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on City's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you, and now I'll turn the meeting back over to Ms. Gentry.
Thank you, Leah. With that, we're moving to our agenda item A, and that's the approval of the minutes. We'd like to consider approval of the meeting minutes of October 29th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the October 29th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Meetings minutes have been first and second. We will go through the roll to establish full member approval. Mark Bueller?
Aye.
Yes, thank you. If you approve the minutes, say aye. Andrew Gallagher?
Aye.
Mario Fierro?
Aye.
Aye. Christina Gentry? Hai Sung is not here today and probably will not be joining us. Elizabeth O'Neill?
Aye.
And Monty Sokop?
Aye.
Thank you. All meeting minutes have been approved with one absence. So it has been so moved, and we will move on to item B, public comment. Is there any public comment that we will take in person in the room? We'll open up to public comment. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Tony Kresnik. I had a couple of comments. One, just to clean up a couple of points of confusion. In the AHAB application, and I'm sorry, my computer's charging, there's several questions that we understand to be violation of fair housing if we were to ask a potential applicant, such as if a female were to make an application asking if she was the head of household, would be an example. And so I'm definitely not an attorney, but there are questions that applicants are being asked in the AHAB application that would never be asked in the state application, and we would definitely never ask at a property level. The property management company, I just wanted to make mention of that. If I wasn't clear in some of those responses, that's exactly why. Reverse discrimination is discrimination on its face. To that end, there was another comment made by somebody that said, well, why would they check seniors? Why would they check families with children? We wanted to check anybody that would be able to apply. And again, coming back to the reverse discrimination, that's why we would have checked a box saying that a senior could live at one of the properties. Same reason that we would check the same box saying that children could live at a property. And while we do have a couple of tenants that are 55 years of age or older that do oversee children, typically what we see is what we try to provide is something for everybody. And then the third comment that I wanted to address, somebody said, well, a lot of these are one bedrooms, and I did speak to that. In the multifamily environment, not the single family environment, but the multifamily environment, if you have a vacancy, it's almost always going to be a 3-bedroom and a 2-bedroom. The studios and 1-bedrooms are what is most desired in multifamily elevator common hallway buildings for obvious reasons. However, the majority of our tenants that do have children's, they are in 1-bedroom apartments. 1-bedroom apartments are a fantastic option for a single parent, especially when you have 1 child, 2 childs, joint custody. So there was some confusion last time about, well, families or children can't be in 1-bedroom apartments. The majority of the children stay in a 1-bedroom apartment, if nothing else, because how much more expensive it is for that single parent to rent a 2-bedroom. So I wanted to clear that up as well. We made 3 applications. I understand how oversubscribed AHAB is, and I appreciate how difficult of a job you have in scoring these. I wrote an email to Leah late Friday night, and I just said in the event that there is not enough money to go around, that I would have to default to scoring. And for those purposes, if there was not enough money to go around, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that 9 Dell Lofts Phase 2 is going to score one of, if not the highest levels in the entire state, definitely in Lawrence Douglas County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Is there any additional comments from public in this, or in this space, in the area? Okay, seeing none, do we have any public comment online? Okay, moving to public comment online, Stephen Watts. Good morning, Stephen.
Okay, it's unmuted now. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about our Affordable Housing Advisory Board, which is a critical and viable board for our town, and it's for the town of Lawrence. I'd like to visit the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which centers around eligible applicants for people who are under the 80% area media income. That's who these targeted monies are for, and that includes rehabilitation of existing housing stock, which I believe the monies have we haven't really spent a whole lot of money on existing housing stock, which is critical to providing affordable housing to the people of Lawrence versus the continual development of more and more apartments where only a handful of the units are dedicated for rent control purposes and or affordable housing purposes. So the developer gets to build 5 million units and sets aside 15 for regular people. Nah. The money doesn't have to be given away and spent willy-nilly. There's no reason that the board cannot begin to examine new and different ways of using this money. One of them is to open up the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to individual applicants who own their homes and know how to use this process. It's critical to do that in terms of maximizing the money. It preserves the 10% or more that is paid as administrative costs for not-for-profits to distribute this money amongst the people that they pick and choose. If you are not sufficiently hat in hand with these not-for-profits, there's no room at the end for you. And there's so little money to go around, evidently, dedicated just to this aspect that it can be done like that. So it's exciting to see the Affordable Housing Advisory Board not made up of new people, or not made up of the same people over and over, where in vested interests were making decisions. I hope that this next year we can find these ways. And you don't have to spend the money right now. We can set it aside and find different ways to do things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Do we have any additional comments online? I see that we have Vic Munoz. Yes, Vic, good morning. Vince, I'm sorry, good morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, Vince. Hold on just a second.
Are we unmuted now? Okay, awesome. Thank you. I wanted to thank everyone again for considering our application, like some of the other people had said. And I wanted to also just say like a few things about like our application. The first is just to point people to the fact that the Douglas County Tenant Experience Survey just came out recently. And I think that the results are another reminder that people need to be made aware of their rights and how to exert their rights, which is kind of like the crux of our application. And I know that you have limited resources and have to make hard decisions about a lot of really good applicants. And so I just wanted to, stress that in the event that we can't get the full amount, which is obviously pretty likely, if we just had enough funding for one educator, we could make that work. In Lawrence Tenants, we had a discussion about like what would we do if we didn't get all the funding. If we just got the $70,000 for one person, which again, just to like reiterate, would be $50,000 for their base salary, and then additional funding to support like the memorandum of understanding, reimbursing the nonprofit we have the MOU with to do the payroll and things like that, benefits. If we just had that, we could make that work. We've used funding that we've raised ourselves for resources for printing material or booking spaces, and we could make that work. We just need like the baseline for one educator. And again, I would really encourage everyone to read, regardless of what happens today. If you haven't read the Douglas County Tenant Experience Survey, I would really encourage everyone to read that. And then just like finally to say thank you again for all your time and your consideration and your thoughtful questions. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Vince. Any additional comments online? I see we have Faith Lopez. Faith, would you like to comment?
I do not have anything in particular, but what Vince brought up, I can share with the group as well. We have a presentation over the tenant experience in Lawrence, and so I can share that, and so that way everyone can kind of see some of the information that some of the tenants in Douglas County had mentioned. We had been able to survey over 1,000 applicants, and so that is a really, really large number. That's a very big turnout, and so we're seeing a lot of data from that coming from various groups, and so I think that would be incredibly beneficial for everyone to review, especially moving forward, as we're going to have more educational panels on it, more resources regarding it as well, just to help uplift the community and help inform them of their rights and how to kind of move forward within their housing rights. So, and yes, my name is Faith Lopez. I am the new prevention specialist at the care center, and my pronouns are they, them. And I appreciate everyone giving me time to speak, and it's wonderful to see everyone.
Thank you, Faith. I appreciate your comments. Is there any additional comments that we have online?
Christina, just for point of clarification, we will be receiving the tenant survey in our next meeting, correct?
Yeah, sorry, this is Leah Roseland. Yeah, there will be a presentation on the tenant survey. And since Faith just brought it up, I'm going to go ahead and email it out to the board right now.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great reference. Additional comments online? Okay, I see none. So moving forward, we will put my items for agenda. Our next agenda item is C, to review and discuss Affordable Housing Trust Fund 2024 Quarter 3 reports. There's no action required for the board. We will provide feedback as appropriate. So Leah, could you pull that up for us to examine as a board?
Yeah.
If there are any general discussion, feedback we have on the report. And I wasn't sure how we designed the conversation with this. As a group, did we want to talk about any of the feedback we had regarding all of the applicants and applications? Or do we have something in particular to go through for each? How does the board want to design this discussion?
Just have a general comment for the entirety of it. I don't want to name anyone in particular, but.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Let's go ahead.
Sure. So this is Maria Ferreiro. Just overall comment on the progress of these reports. So just knowing that these folks, once awarded, have 3 years to utilize the funds. So that is probably why we're not seeing, houses built or projects completed. But I would recommend, particularly from the groups that are awarded that don't have any outcomes for this year, maybe to give us a little bit more of their plan of progress. I know they're on track. One in particular is on track to move forward in 2025, but just having some milestones or some way to show us what their next 2 years now would be would look like would be particularly helpful, just so we know that the funds are being utilized and we're awarding these projects and that they're being completed and supporting our efforts to affordable housing. So just a note on some of those projects.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mariel. Seeing no further discussion, I'm not sure if we want to read the comments aloud. Leah, would you help with a little bit of design on how we share this out to public?
Yeah, I would suggest not reading the progress narratives out loud and expect that the board has read that ahead of the meeting. Typically, we would just, the board would note any comments, concerns, or information that they would like to see to get back from the applicants, if there are any. I can just quickly scroll and review. So Burton Ash has not started construction yet. I know that they had spent quite a lot of time looking for an appropriate site and looking for full funding. DECA, I believe, is on track to start construction. They have not started yet. They've also been looking for additional revenue for the project. Douglas County Housing Stabilization Collaborative does their work all year. In Q3, they served 123 people with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars. So those are people in Lawrence specifically. The estates of Lawrence have completed construction and have occupants currently living in the units, which is really exciting. The city marketing team recently went and took some photos of the estates, and they're really nice. So encourage you all to drive by if you can. It's an exciting project. Flint Hills, you might have seen, well, Tony's here. Tony, it seems like I can see construction starting. So that's exciting. We can all watch progress there. Floret Hill just recently was awarded tax credits, which is what they needed to secure in order to have the necessary revenue to start construction. So at the time of the report, they hadn't heard back from KHRC. I added a note that tax credits were awarded for the project. Independence Inc., they completed 2 accessibility rehabs in Q3 and 5 for the year. You can see the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority, New Horizon vouchers, served 8 households in Q3 and 30 this year. 9th Street Missionary Baptist has not started construction yet. They were also looking for financing, and I believe they recently secured county funds to have their revenue needed to begin construction, so they're on track. Senior Resource Center has rehabbed 2 units with 1 scheduled in Q3, 4 with 1 scheduled for the year. Tenants to homeowners, Harper 7 is just about complete, is complete. So they finished 5 units in Q3, 7 this year. So that project is complete and have had new homeowners move in. Those are also really cute units. And so if you haven't seen them, they're freaking adorable. And then Michigan 6 has run into some challenges that has delayed construction, and they have not started construction yet. Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that review and update. Okay. Any additional comments, feedback from the board?
Question. On the 9th Street Baptist, did they get funding to do both projects? Because remember, we funded one of 2. We funded like half of their. Did they get the funding to do the full deal, or just for their what?
Just for the,
We had
yeah.
supplement. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Great updates. Thank you for that, Leah. Moving on to agenda item 2, receive and consider staff recommendation to adjust the 2025 Affordable Housing Advisory Board meeting schedule to 6 to 8 p.m. on the second Thursdays of the second month of each quarter. This needs to be an action that we commit. We need to probably confirm some of these dates meeting our schedules and calendars going forward.
There's not a choice here, right?
There's
Always a choice.
Well, thinking and considering what options are available for us as meeting space is also the consideration too as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there isn't a choice. That's when we're going to meet, if most of us can meet, right?
Well, the AHAB can choose its own meeting time and schedule. We're recommending this particular time for a couple reasons. One, as I noted, it's when the room is available, the city commission room is available. The AHAB is currently an outlier in that we are the only board except for the planning commission that meets during regular business hours. All other advisory boards and commissions meets during the evening when it's easier for the public to participate. And just in looking at other meeting schedules in the room, it was Thursday evening that was available. So that's why I selected that particular date. We are suggesting that we move to quarterly instead of monthly, so that might be something that the AHAB wants to think about a little bit. But part of the motivation for this is there are a couple of strategies in the Place for Everyone plan that the AHAB is responsible for executing that may be better accomplished through like small committees than the monthly meetings, but that's obviously a change for the AHAB as well to consider.
Add my thoughts if it's helpful. So I think what could potentially be beneficial for this board is to maybe consider the quarterly. I think the date and time again is one, to be accessible to our community. As you know, we don't have a whole lot of people that can make it at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning. And so just trying to promote more participation from our community who ultimately will be the benefactors of the work that we do. And then secondly, moving it to quarterly, I would encourage us to maybe in our January meeting create some space on the agenda to talk about what commitments we can do in between that time, since that will be moving to 4 meetings a year as a body. I think we would still have a lot of conversation and considerations to do around affordable housing. A Place for Everyone being a really wonderful opportunity. There is an affordable housing, supportive housing, transitional housing. There's all kinds of housing throughout that plan. And I think in order for us to be successful in the execution of that strategic plan, it definitely needs some support from this particular body that can be in direct conversations with those work groups. As one who holds the equity and inclusion work group, I know having more folks in that space centering around affordable housing would be incredibly beneficial. So I would love to move to this particular schedule, pending the date and time that's most accessible, with the idea that we will visit some commitments in between those quarterly spaces that will allow us to get a little bit deeper into the community work of affordable housing.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are we saying that in 2025, we would only meet a total of 4 times? Because I'm struggling to see how we would receive all of the applications, let everybody present on their applications, review those applications independently, kind of decide for ourselves how much everybody should or shouldn't get, and then reconvene and ultimately make that decision in one meeting in the fall. I think that this might be a really great option for the first 6 months of the year, but if this is a year-round thing, I don't see it feasible the second half, but like maybe contingent on third quarter, we up the frequency of the meets to make what we do actually possible. I don't have an issue with the evening thing. I don't have an issue with whatever day of the week, but doing all this in 2 hours, it doesn't seem realistic, so.
Is it
Agree
okay
with
if I
that.
comment? Yeah, that's a good point, Andrew, and I guess I didn't state it, but in my mind, I was thinking that the AHAB would then hold special meetings during the trust fund grant cycle, because you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I was like, no.
Yeah, even our monthly
don't
meetings
wanna
aren't enough, yeah.
No.
Madam Chair, that'd be okay. I wouldn't, just personally, I wouldn't do special meetings. I would get them on the calendar. Because if you're trying to create an open process that the public has access to, it should be published. And if that means we meet twice in the first half of the year and 4 times in the second half, that's fine. I think we can make that fit our process. But I think I'd get those meetings on the calendar published so they're not, oh, I didn't know there was a meeting. Yeah, it would be, that's my only comment on that, the time and all that.
When do you guys meet? Gets harder and harder to answer.
It gets harder,
Well,
yeah.
depends on.
Yeah, and then also it's the pretense that we will all, and I say we, but the board members will be participating in other committees and work groups outside of the AHAB. Is that the contention? That's what we would be supporting, the individual work that we would do in the agency we would give to those small committees and then come back and bring it to the larger committee throughout the quarter that we do meet? Okay, so that would be an obligation that we'd have to fulfill to find a work group that meets our desires, aligns with our goals, commit time to that, as long as it's within the place for every one work group.
Is it okay? So what I heard suggested perhaps then was going ahead and scheduling monthly meetings, but canceling ones if there was no particular business. Is that what you were sort of suggesting, Monty?
No.
Oh. Okay.
I was suggesting figuring out when we need to meet based on the process
Okay.
in place.
Okay.
Just scheduling. If it's
Creating a calendar.
creating a
rather than-
calendar, if it's the first 6 months of the year, we only meet twice, that's fine. But when we have our, assuming this similar kind of process moves forward, we need to meet 3 months in a row, probably.
Put all of those on the calendar.
Put all that on the calendar at the beginning of the year and
Yeah.
create a calendar is all I was.
Yeah.
So would it be helpful if that's sort of where the AHAB wants to go? Would it be helpful if I created that calendar and brought it back next month for the AHAB to vote on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Great.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm hearing the action is and do we have to create an action and then, I feel like we have to create an action and then board approves on it, or is that the process what we just did right now?
Yeah, since the AHAB isn't ready to take action on it, we'll do that next month.
So we'll defer to move on action in our next month's meeting on receiving and consider the recommendations to adjust our advisory board meeting schedule.
Cool.
Thank you. Moving on, our next agenda item will be agenda item number 3, to discuss and come to decision on the 2025 Affordable Housing Trust Fund recommendations to City Commission.
Before we get started, I'm going to recuse myself for the
yeah.
last time I open this meeting. Good luck, everyone. It's been really wonderful to watch your conversations and know that I am holding back so much. But I know y'all will make the right choice. I'm just going to go sit over there. and listen.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have our 2025 Affordable Housing Advisory Board application summaries to consider. I'll pull that up. But as we are considering and talking, I wanted us to also consider looking at a few other documents, including the 2024 Affordable Housing Trust Fund project applications, alignment with the Place for Everyone objectives. And so when in consideration, and as we are taking our considerations, please refer back to this. I know that I did with the work too. So I feel like this is a great way for us to begin to strategize the objectives, to align ourselves with the reminder of our objectives, and to review and make sure that those objectives are in alignment with the applications that we received as far as our recommendations. The strategies are also provided. Those were guidance for us to use as our metric too, as well, when we are making these recommendations. And so just to align ourselves and remind ourselves we are beginning with this, because this helps us to understand what we're going to consider moving forward. And the alignments are here, given to us, and how they align with all of each of our strategies and objectives. So as a board, I'm sure that we've removed all of these. Oh, and we also take into consideration some of the projects that do not directly align with our objectives and strategies. And so these are great to note as well. These are great projects. All the applications that we had are absolutely wonderful in their projection, but as a board, we need to consider how they directly align with the objectives and the goals that we had set forth preceding these applications in this process. So just to ground us in that space, we can move forward unless there's any other additional conversation. We are just at quorum as well too, so yeah, this is a very important conversation as well to have. So we can move forward to consider
Do you want to?
what our project names. And as a review, the applications and the project names are all there, but here are the board's recommendations as Aaliyah has combined all of our points and the amounts that we came to consider. I would like us as a board to do what we've done in the past, and Monty, please help me, because you've been the board chair in the past and how we design these conversations. I'll look to you for your leadership in that space too to help. But we wanted to start off with what we directly align with as a group and as a board, and start with that. And upon examination, it looks like we as a group decided that the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority New Horizons vouchers should be fully requested at its 50,000 request. And it looks like as a board, am I right to consider that 50,000 was a recommendation for all boards?
The median.
The median recommendation, okay?
Madam Chair,
Yeah, please, let's have conversation on that too.
we have a median score up there? Mm-hmm. With 6 people. You have a median score.
We also,
Median is middle, right?
Yes.
Am I right?
It's probably average.
So when you have that, you average the 2 middle scores together to get the median.
we also have an average, if
Don't
that's
you-
helpful.
And you have the average up there too?
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, does the average equal the recommended amount? I'm just curious.
No, so,
Yes.
so what we've typically done with this is she takes all of our scores and we get these averages and medians. It's just a starting place.
Yeah.
Certainly not a recommendation. I think, too, we heard some things today, in my opinion, and particularly about the Flint Hills Holdings. You know, if our applicant there said if you can only fund one project, this is the project that has the best chance of getting LIHTC funds. That, personally, I know my original submittal, that would change my original submittal, because that's information I got after I did that considerably regarding the Flint
Mine
Hills
too.
project. So I think, to me, in my mind, I look at the Flint Hills projects and I have to reprioritize those at least, because I kind of like, okay, there's 3 good projects here. I want to fund one of them. I picked the wrong one based on the applicant's information. But So to me, I have to rethink completely those 4 projects, really. If for me, I think I would, if we could get to where we agree on, pretty much certain ones that we want to fund, like you say, we all looked at Douglas County Housing Authority vouchers,
Yeah.
and everybody fund, there's some that that are pretty clear on how, to me, I would do that, and then I would get it down to 2 or 3 we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I think I wanted to start with us in agreement and moving to consider recommendations and finalizing that. So as a group, it does look like our median, we had some conversation, thank you for that, for clarity, on average and medium recommendations. And it looks similarly that the Douglas County Housing Authority was supported by each of the board in a significant way, that the final recommendation should be to fully support the $50,000 request.
Yes.
So let's move to do that. And how does the vocabulary go to move to approve?
Well, I think we're just going to put numbers in there.
Okay.
So suggest, I'll make it,
Yeah, because
I
I'm
would
way too
suggest
formal right now.
Douglas
Yeah.
County Housing Authority 50, Independence Inc. 75. I would do Senior Resource Center at 50. I'm just throwing out a number. We'll talk about all this, right?
Monty, can
You want me
I?
to continue to suggest, or do you want to,
Well, that-
Yeah, please.
other people?
More discussion.
Are we in agreement on that, or?
19,000 to Flint Hills Holdings for the lofts. What did our results show there?
For which, for Nindell
Very
Lofts?
differently. I was going to fully fund that. The lofts, the 19,785 request.
So, sorry, can we pause for just a sec? I'm sorry, just to make sure that all the board members are on the same page. So typically, members are throwing out amounts. If there's no objection to entering those amounts, just as a starting place, so the board can kind of see the available and remaining total. And then, in the past, that's how we've done it, is a board member will suggest amount. If there's no objections, it'll go in there as a placeholder, and then the deliberations really start after those first suggestions. That good with everybody? Okay, sorry. So Mark, what were you saying?
I'd be fine with that for the ones where, the medians and the average are pretty close to each other and it matches pretty closely to what was requested. But if there's quite a bit of variance within those, I'm a little hesitant to just go with what one member throws out to put on as our starting place. I'd rather address those individually through discussion.
So is the board okay with what is in there as a placeholder at this time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So I heard that Mark made a suggestion to fully fund Nindell Lofts. Does the board want to discuss that, put that in as a placeholder, or just hold that for now?
Nindell Lofts.
I would like to hold that for now.
Okay.
Wait,
I think
That's
he was actually speaking about polar lofts,
it was polar lofts.
but I'd like to hold that for now.
Sorry. Okay.
You'd also like to not, okay. All right. Where are we on Habitat for Humanity? The request was 100. I recommended 75.
Same.
Anybody want to talk about that?
Yeah,
What is
let's
it,
have discussion
88
about it.
average, 90 median?
Yeah.
What if we go 89 on there and just leave it as a placeholder? Is anybody opposed to that?
No?
I'm not opposed to that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Let's discuss the Douglas County Housing Stabilization Collaborative. Monty, did you have another discussion that you wanted
Housing
to?
Stabilization Collaborative. Oh.
That was-
I would put that in at 200 personally. as a starting place. Not that it couldn't go up or down. I struggled with that one because of the alignment.
Yes.
I also get that I think, last year we funded it at 550, and if we cut it to 0, I think that's devastating to that program. I would fund that at half or less with this.
I would be on the under half side of that.
With a strong urging for them to find another resource. I know they've been trying, but this is just not the right resource in my opinion, but I also can't cut them off completely. We brought them into this space. I just couldn't. I don't have the heart to do that.
Yeah, similarly, I'd had them at recommending a recommendation of 250,000. I'm hopeful, and I don't know, maybe Leah, there could be some conversations going forward about the passing of the tax increase and how that can maybe
Right.
at some point look to fund some of the housing stabilization collaboratives
Right.
in the future. But knowing that that is an important resource and a very important resource in meeting some of our objectives as well, I prioritized it as 250. But we definitely can scale it down to 200,000 if we are still continuing to have that discussion as a group. So 200,000, is that maybe a good
For
number to
now,
start with?
for now,
I mean,
yeah.
we're still gonna adjust these, I think.
Okay, great. And I'm kind of saving the Flint Hills Holdings for a larger discussion. I
Yeah.
think that warrants that, given the information that we were given today and the email.
You mean
we
the
were able to consider.
polar lofts?
Yes, and new developments for the Flint Hill Holdings.
Well, hold on. So the Polar Lofts is just a 19,785.
That's
Right.
true, yes.
Is it okay with everybody if we talk about that one specifically first? Because it's $19,785.
Yes.
I'm just opening it up to any conversation there at all.
I mean, in my mind, yes, it may only be $19,785, but in a year when when we already are having to make so many really difficult decisions, it is still $19,785 to fund a project, work on a project that was already funded by this body. So I'm very hesitant to provide funding to that when we have so many other very deserving projects as well who have not already received funding from this body for their project.
Valid.
I struggle, I struggled on this one too. I get the idea that those units need rehab, but as a professional in the field of property management, my feeling is if you haven't set aside money to take care of the maintenance at the 15-year point in the life of a building, you haven't done a very good job of planning. And I'm not sure that I could sit here and go, we funded this project originally. They maybe haven't managed their resources as well as they could have. I don't know. I just have trouble funding that. So I had 0 on that, but I also get that
You have 0 on it.
it's keeping units, working units on the ground.
Yeah.
So I get that too. So,
I had it fully funded. I also want to acknowledge, I think we're talking about setting a precedent. I didn't really consider that when I was putting my numbers in, so.
I would share your view. What were your feelings on it, Christina?
So I had sentiments that were similar. I had it at 10,000 because of the understanding that this was a rehabilitation for mixed use, and also
Right.
recognizing that some of these things and these are already people in place.
Right.
And supporting people in place and in house or currently housed was really my incentive. I just taking into consideration this conversation, I've just in my own zeroed it out. Only because there's just so much of this conversation that helps determine my space of where we can move in alignment as a board. And so with the conversation here and your understanding and understanding that we have these great projects that we could help support additionally, I think the funds could be better utilized elsewhere.
So, I'm sorry, I thought you said 10. You didn't?
I started at 10, and this discussion has
Taking you to zero.
taking
Okay.
to zero, with the opportunity to build upon that. That is zero with a conversation that can start from zero and go from another number, and that's what we're doing today here, I feel.
All right. You want to put a placeholder 0 in there so we can talk about some other stuff?
Sounds good.
We can do
Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I might, is it okay if I interject this a moment? I might suggest also discussing TJK next, as it looked like that had some consistency.
Okay. Yeah, let's discuss the TJK Inc.
Yeah, I concur. You could put a placeholder 0 in that for me.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. So much agreement.
So, in-
Next one.
Madam Chair, in a way, we submitted our test, if you will, and then we got information the other night that changed, at least his test changed my test, might have changed everyone's test. So, in light of that information, I'd recommend that the East Heights and the New Hampshire Street Lofts project, we put a placeholder of 0 in. I wanted to show support for all his projects, quite frankly, but in light of the information provided us, would it help us get to the end by doing that?
Could it be helpful? I think also it aligns with some of our similarly what the board had recommended. I see that there was an average and a medium that was not fully supported. It was 0 at the Flint Hills Holding and the Lofts, New Hampshire Street Lofts, and we agreed that a 9-Dale Lofts new development medium would be 0 recommendation supported. So I think you're in alignment with the rest of what the board had considered. Holding a 0 place number makes sense to me. And my answer, or my thoughts came in Tony Kirsch's response. If Tony wanted to allocate a certain dollar amount for their projects, we asked the question, would it be more beneficial, Leah asked the question to Tony, would it be more beneficial to spread out the funds between 2 or more projects or to fully fund one project? And I think we all received that email. And the answer Tony gave us also helped to support that email. And he reminded us that his tenants are in 1-bedroom units, and that they are single parents who cannot afford a 2-bedroom unit. But that also gets me to thinking about our City of Lawrence strategic plan and the % of households that are experiencing housing stress in rental housing. So Tony is actually right. You know, there are 1-bedroom units being used for single-family homes.
Right.
And that's a good consideration to make. But the city strategy is to, and we haven't reached that target yet, but to create more home ownership or ownership for low and moderate income renters who want to become owners by increasing the supply of affordable housing options. To me, that's increasing the supply of more than 1-bedroom housing options.
Agreed.
So the AHAB alignment with affordable housing objectives and a place for everyone says that our objective 4 is to increase the supply of new affordable rental and home ownership units with 3 or more bedrooms. We had decided as a group that we would do that. And I see that Tony Kirsch's strategy aligns with objective 1 and objective, what was it, as a reference? Objective 1 and strategy 1, which is great. I see the decreasing the supply of rental bedrooms, but I see that in the Flint Hills Holdings, and I supported that with $560,000 as a recommendation for me on my
On
my
which of the projects?
for the new development for East Heights.
Yeah, that was the one that I was, and I know it's withdrawn now, but I get that 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units are more expensive and makes it more difficult to make affordable. But, you know, if you're a single parent and you're dealing with custody issues at all, not having a bedroom for your child can cause you to not have parenting time with your child. And so I understand that we've got to make things profitable and we've got to make things affordable based on AMI, but I also want people to have options while they're trying to expand their financial means. That doesn't go from affordable unit 1-bedroom to market rate 2-bedroom. I would love to see a transition there that makes those kinds of things possible. And I know that we don't have an option now on the board. I'm just kind of throwing a verbal temper tantrum, I guess, but I'm very disheartened that was one of the projects that was withdrawn.
Well, so just to clarify, the board still, I mean, you still have a choice of what you would like to recommend. So that was Mr. Kresnick's, that would be his preference of what would be fully funded if only one project was going to, if a limited amount is going to be recommended. But the board doesn't have to.
So am I wrong? Did they withdraw the other two?
Did not withdraw.
Withdrawn. It's been just prioritized in a way that when we asked Tony the question about what he wanted to allocate or what he thought his projects would be more beneficial to support. And this email came as a group. I believe we all received that email that gave a clarity and clarification. Tony also came and spoke to us about furthering that clarification.
So
So,
I would like to clear the deck and withdraw the East Heights and NH lofts in pursuit of having 9 Dell lofts fully funded. Was that?
So the email did communicate withdrawal, but, so I think it's unclear. But
Do you mind if we ask you any?
I would like to take this time in consideration to, because of the withdraw, if it's not being withdrawn, you were able to give us 3 minutes of your time. Just for further clarity, Tony, since you are here, would you like to speak 3 minutes on providing some feedback?
no, just whether or not he's withdrawing
Whether or not you're
the
withdrawing.
other proposals or not.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for that clarity. We don't
No,
need
yeah.
3 minutes for that. Whether or not you're withdrawing. I think I'm trying to be really kind.
I know.
But maybe we just need to cut to the chase.
we seek
Please do that.
clarification.
Yeah.
Yes.
If there's not enough funds to fully fund the projects, I'd like to clear the deck. I don't have any idea how much money. I also didn't know that there was money set aside for previous projects that don't even know a site. So I wasn't sure how much money was coming back or not, which has happened. The project that will score number 1 is 9 Dell Lofts Phase 2. I appreciate it, but that's really all I can give. I just assumed other projects that don't have site control or any financing available would just come back. If that's not how it works, then I apologize. I'm not sure what discussions have been had, so.
So you.
That is an official
So my
withdrawal
understanding
of
is
the
he
other
wants to
two
withdraw the other projects.
That's my understanding.
So the money that's sitting out there for other projects that aren't feasible is going to stay out there and not come back?
So
This-
we're not taking that comment. We just wanted a clarification from you if you are withdrawing or if you're not withdrawing the additional projects or the other projects. I think we're understanding if you are withdrawing the 9 Dell Lofts 2 or the New Hampshire Street Lofts as for consideration.
I'm sorry, guys, I've never been in this position before. It was, even if there was a small allocation made, it'd be in gesture only. So I think that the board needs to refer back to the QAP and, put the funding towards a project that can actually get done, and that would likely be 9 Dell Lofts Phase 2.
Thank you, Tony.
Sorry for dodging the
No,
question.
No problem.
I just haven't been in this position before.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. So board discussion.
Chair, maybe in a way we have failed, in a sense, that if we really want to prioritize those kind of projects and get those kind of projects that are 3-bedroom, which the market really is not wanting to respond to, which is what we're seeing by these applications. They're not really wanting to respond to that because they're harder to do. We know they're harder to do. We need to probably, in the next round, so we're not in this position a year from now, is modify our application to really target that kind of thing. That's what I'm thinking. We put that as a priority in our thing, but we didn't really force the issue. And so this is what we are with what we have, with the market's responding to. So I think today, our choice is what we have on the table. Good or bad, maybe it doesn't meet all the criteria we'd prefer, but I think that's a choice we have today.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
What, we're trying to make selections based on merit of the projects and the criteria we've created. But there are other influences out there which have to do with what can be done. And one of the frustrations I've heard people complain about is you fund projects that don't get built. And there's some truth to that. So the question, and I don't want to speak for Tony, but the question the question that he brought up that I'm now asking is, do we have a commitment to projects that don't get funded? Do we have a fuse that says that money now comes back to us? Do we have that program in place as a board? And so I'm asking that question. Do we know what we're going to do? Is it simple? Is there no money coming back? Is there 2.5? Are we going to continue to wait to see how projects progress before we act? Can anybody help me with that?
So I guess I'm confused about what projects are being referenced. We are not holding money for any projects that can't move forward.
But some haven't. They're waiting on outside funding.
No,
Leah said that they had 3 years.
They have 3 years in the agreement. All the projects are on track based on the agreement. There was one project that was waiting on LIHTC awards. It was awarded LIHTC, so now they have that was the only project. And in terms of the amount that we have to allocate this year, there's no amount that's being held for a previous.
I didn't think there was.
Oh, okay.
I just wondered how we're going to react over time.
Well, in
Okay.
previous years, there have been projects that essentially defaulted on their contract with the city, and that money came back to this board to award in the regular process. It was just added. So let's say we had $1 million in
Yeah, just didn't happen.
tax funds. We had one, I think it was 185,000 or 145,000, I can't remember, that came back to us because the developer said, I can't get this done. So no money typically gets spent until there's actually a project. It's just in hold. It's encumbered, maybe encumbered is the word. I don't know, that might not be the right word.
So after the 3 years, then that becomes money that we have.
Would come back to this group to reallocate, yeah.
So at this
But
point, right now, there's no reallocatable.
No.
funds, right?
No, or Leah would have put it all together.
Right.
We would have seen that instead of 1.2, we would have had some other number.
Gotcha.
And just to further clarify, they have 3 years to build. Typically, that's what's in the agreement. They have 1 year to sign the contract and receive the funds. So if at the end of, in 2024, if the project is not viable to move forward in that year, then the funds would be reallocated. They haven't been distributed
Got it.
yet, though.
So far, we're good.
There's no, maybe next month we'll have none of that.
No,
Gotcha.
that would,
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a suggestion on amounts for a couple other lines so we
Yeah.
can keep moving forward on that.
Absolutely. I just
Okay.
wanted to note too that we had no more, we are not accepting public comment at the time. I know that there were some hands raised, so we will not be receiving public comment in lieu of the conversation that we're having as a board. So
Okay.
maybe that person's gone, but we have now moved on to discussion of,
So I'm going to recommend
Yes.
on Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority, Delmar Place, $150,000 on that project. And I'm going to, on 9 Del Lofts 2, I'm going to recommend $400,000 as a starting place, so we can start to get
400, you said 400?
400 is what I put there.
And the,
Just again,
9 Del
I was
Lofts.
trying to get us to a starting
Right,
place, so
right.
we can.
I get it.
And then on tenants to homeowners arm rehab, I'm going to recommend 80,000 there. I know that's a little higher than what other people had. As I recall from their conversation, they said their typical to do one house was about $80,000. That's in my notes I had. So I was trying to get one house done there. And with that, I'm going to let someone else make some recommendations on.
For Lawrence tenants, I would like to recommend $70,000. As was spoken about today, I similarly had noted that in my recommended amount to fund one position.
Okay, so we have the recommendations. Let's consider each of the ones, starting with the Flint Hills Holdings, 9 Lofts 2. We've had some discussions. Let's consider to scaffold that amount as a group to see if that is still in alignment with what our thoughts and recommendations are for final recommendations to City Commission.
I would, sounds like I'm probably by myself here, but I would support a higher amount in an effort for the project to be completed. And so I would have fully funded it because it's in front of us. It's now. And so.
Any further discussion? As an average, we have less than 50,000 as the board can take in consideration. I like more conversation on this because I, in my mind, have zeroed it out.
Yeah.
And I just want to have an agreement about what we want to fully support, given Tony's comments and his further comments, and come to some dollar amount that makes good alignment with our board's decisions.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I chose 400 out of looking at the 36 affordable units. It's a little over $10,000 a unit supplement. And that's been pretty typical of a lot of new projects, LIHTC projects that we have funded in the past. And that's how I chose that, kind of got to that number. I mean, other than there's a lot of other good things I wanted to fund. I'm not opposed to a little bit higher amount if that seemed to be the will of the board. But that's how I got to about half, a little over half.
What did you originally have for East Heights?
I had originally funded about that amount on East Heights, and I had 0 on 9 Lofts because of the kind of project it was. I mean, for me, my score personally, and I think the score on here, it scored higher than that other project. It was family housing. It had that ground for the daycare component, which was, to me, a real community benefit. I mean, it had some great things about that project.
So are you basically just shifting that up?
I shifted that to, based on the email and thinking that this is a project that will move forward or has a high likelihood of moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, Mark said it before, when we have projects that are highly likely to get funded by LIHTC, I think, to me, that's a consideration that it actually will go. And we won't get this money back, We've had projects that we funded and we get the money back, and we lost 3 years of housing for someone. So it's hard. It's just hard. It's not my favorite project, but
I had all three of those.
It's a likely one.
I had all three of those projects funded at least 200, one 327 on the lofts, New Hampshire lofts, 250 on 9 And then when we got the memo, I changed. I'd be interested in seeing what people's test score was after the memo the other day. I moved all my funding to that in an effort, took it away from the other Flint Hills projects. And because I want to see units. So,
Yeah, it kind of troubles me a little bit, if I'm going to be honest. The East Heights, I had it at least over 500,000 I recommended. I really
Myself as well.
believe in that.
Yeah.
And so I'm now challenged to say, and to hear the developer speak, I'm now challenged to say, like, what does that recommendation look forward, going forward, based upon our tenants and homeowners rehab, which could, I feel, be the space that considers that money now for me. We recommended at 80,000. Could we shift that up and talk about maybe 100,000 for that? Is that something that we want to consider? Because I had it at 100,000, and that's kind of where my mind is. If we're shifting, in my mind, shifting recommendations, that's where my money would go, or
Is
my
that because
recommendation
it's
go.
the only other project that's going to be potentially more than one bedroom?
Yes, and also because of the, what I see is a rehab. The importance, for me, my priorities, looking at the objectives that our priorities were for the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, is one of them is to speak on continuing keeping people housed, the rebuild and remodel of existing homes, and if the ARM program is something I wrote down here, it looks to be influential in possibly moving some things to policy. Like, it has the possibility of like influencing policy and structural changes in the way that it approaches its commitment. And I'm thinking specifically of one of our strategies to, let me pull that up on here because I've got a few tabs open. We've got some policy, and I'm thinking of our, hold on just one moment.
While you're looking, can I make a comment on it?
Yes, please.
Tenants to homeowners ARM, for my score, it scored second highest next to Del Mar. It meets lots of criteria. It does lots of things we want to do. The thing that made me back off of the 200.
No, I'm sorry, is this the ARM 220?
This is the ARM. Yeah, tenants to homeowners, ARM 2025 rehab. The thing that made me back off of fully funding was when they said they don't have a specific project in mind. That they have plenty of potential projects, but they don't have a specific project. So I cut that down to one project, thinking in 3 years they can probably, or in a year, they can actually solidify that one project and not tie up. So I took that down. I had it at 80, I think, is what I had, but because that's what they said they could do. I like the project. They've done one successfully. They've done a couple successfully, and they basically asked for double the funding this year, and I didn't see that.
Madam Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes,
Our conversations keep moving from project to project because in our mind, we see one and then we do.
We weigh it.
So or too slow. I'm getting lost.
No
But
problem.
at one time, we were on the East Heights project, which everybody showed, not everybody, a lot of people showed emotional, financial support for. Okay, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the reality of what's in front of us is that project's not going to get funded. It's likely not to get funded for a year or two. If in a year or two they came back, I'd be as crazy about it then as I am now. So it's a good project that can't happen. So as much as I love that project, I wish we could focus on the ones that we can do. So there's my comment about East Heights. I have comments on, if we're moving to the ARM 2025 project, is they don't have anything in hand. They have an idea. Now, a great organization that has been very successful in this line of work, but this project itself is unique, and it too is not ready for its time. And I know they have to be ready, but there's lots of applicants that would say, our timing's never good when the AHAB money is available. So I would not support that. It's a project that has no home yet. So I'm done. That's, again, we talk about two projects at once. I get lost fast.
Yeah, and it's my fault for carrying us to that
No,
conversation,
it
because
isn't.
I think what my concern was if we were zeroing out something, where would we place that? And my mind was out loud talking to the group about where I would place that.
That's
I'm
fine.
referring back to that strategy number 6 in the ARM program, what I can see, and I know this is what we're dealing with now, but I'm also thinking about how we have a really great opportunity with the Lawrence Tenants application, because I know what long-term preventative or like outreach looks like when we do it in a mass scale, when we have like a wide outreach of education, that how that affects long-term results. But the strategy number 6 is what I'm talking about with the ARM program. What I foresee it hopefully being able to establish, and I know that I can't make those ideas become a reality as we're talking about the applications, but hopefully that can see an alignment with strategy number 6 in establishing the City of Lawrence Vacant and Dilapidated Structure Registry ordinance. So I see the ARM program doing some of that work to help to see the significance in that strategy 6. But like I'm saying, I'm connecting ideas that have in our future to something we have in front of us. But I think we have the possibility of seeing the future of these applications coming in to fit our strategies. And that would be one strategy alignment that I could see ARM program doing. And I would see supporting that in that space.
Is it okay if I add some context to that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, so in reference to Strategy 6, establishing a vacant dilapidated registry and ordinance, one of the things that we've been considering and looking at what an ordinance would be is that we obviously don't want to like take people's homes. We don't want it to be a punitive program. So rather a way to identify homes that do need rehab work, with the goal and value of them being able to, if the homeowner wants to stay in that home and wants to rehab that home, that there will be a program and a funding source to enable them to do so. In previous discussions with tenants to homeowners, this, like the ARM program could be an example of how that could work, is that if the city identifies a home that is dilapidated, that needs rehab work in order to maintain the health and structural integrity of the home, that tenants to homeowners could potentially come in as a program partner with those funds. So that's how it's sort of indirectly related to Strategy 6.
Thank you for that context. So maybe that further supports either allocations of recommendations to ARM program, or that just kind of supports keeping it as we have recommended.
Monty, I got a quick question for you. Do you have any idea, I know you're the one that always knows dollars per bed, and so I was wondering if you knew what the average dollars per bed looked like on the new development proposal specifically? Any idea?
What, Nindell?
Like just in, like out of all of the new development projects that are up for debate, what the average cost per new bed looks like?
Oh, well, I can read them off here real
Yeah,
quick.
it's on this chart.
Yeah, and this
Yeah.
part that.
I see the chart. I was just
20
wondering what the average.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
East Heights is around 20, Nindell's around 20, Polar Loft was 14.3, or New Hampshire Loft was 14.3. Delmar Place is 62.50. So, the new ones.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So ARM, again, not that this should be the end-all to end-all, but ARM's original 200,000 number was 30,000 per bed. So by cutting it to 80, we got, down to 12 something or 13. I can't do the math in my head, but it's less than half of 30.
You couldn't score Lawrence tenants that way, right?
Lawrence tenants, which one?
Their application.
Yeah, the ARM.
the community
Harm
engagement.
at 200,000 was
No.
30,000 per.
The community engagement.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I couldn't score that way. There's no completely different.
Yeah.
I struggle with that one. I mean, it's a good initiative. I struggle with how they're going to execute it, but that's maybe not my problem. I don't know.
Well, it is.
I struggled with that.
It is your problem because it's our money.
Well, yeah, but if they aren't able to figure out how to execute it, it won't happen, and it'll come back. But I funded it at about half of what we are recommending at this point. I've funded it personally in my own thing at 45,000.
How much do we have? We've got 36,000 left, that's it?
We've got $36,000 to consider
Yeah.
for our final recommendation.
In your averages, did you use a census of 6? Did you use her submission
Yes,
of funding? So she's here, but she's not here.
that's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Not you. Not you. You are here.
Yeah, Dr. Hahn did submit her recommendations, and she had a medical emergency and couldn't be here this morning. But her recommendations are taken into account with the average and median.
My only real difference in what we have up here that we've kind of talked through and what I submitted was for the Delmar Place. I had only funded half at 100,000 for the replacement of the water line. And it just came down to wanting to contribute to solving that problem, but still leaving the funds available for other projects. But yeah.
I actually was at 50.
Yeah, I had a time with that one as well, continuing to, considering the construction at Delmar Place. Again, what came into consideration were there were people already in place, and a significant amount of our priority population, or our focus population in place too.
No, Delmar is new construction.
Yes.
New development, but
Yeah.
they're adding on, if I'm not.
They're adding another building.
Adding another building, okay.
Another building to a
Gotcha.
space they have on a lot with the
Well,
building on
what
it.
they're adding is a bit surprising construction costs on a utility line for
Right.
a fire hydrant that the fire department didn't tell them when it was time to tell them that there's a problem here. That's what we're doing. We're
Right.
helping the applicant who's in a mess with the city over how the city does what they do, which is frustrating to me a lot. Because it happens a lot.
Yeah, I
And I want to help them.
actually reached out to the contractor to try to understand that's building that property, and it's an extension of a water line to create a loop,
Yep.
which Delmar is currently on a dead-end line, and the city's requiring
So
them
explain.
to add the loop, so
Yeah.
it's really city infrastructure we're adding. The cost is over $200,000. So that's how I got the 200, but I wouldn't, if we got the 150, or 100, huge help to that project.
Right.
To make it go, not gonna make or break the project.
Okay.
So Mark-
Also, if we don't fund it, if you think about, sorry,
No, go ahead.
if you think about new projects that come online and us trying to, potentially justify, not so important now, a revote for the tax that we have that funds this committee, we want credit for those units by this board, and that's a very political stance. I mean, no doubt about it, but we should fund this to some extent simply to position us correctly, and get credit, whether, for these funds creating affordable housing.
Yeah. That's what I believe most people supported
Right.
Not in
People
this-
supported
not in this last
creating
one.
affordable housing, so
in the initial one, like 2-to-1.
there's some part of me that says we should try to fund anything that, to some extent. anything that it funds. And maybe that's a wrong way to look at it. It's probably a very political and terrible way to look at it, but the reality is you get to a point where you have to renew the vote. You have to show success.
I have a two-part question. First being, Monty, it was you that suggested 400,000 to the nine Dell lofts, right? Just as a
Yeah.
placeholder.
Yeah.
And I think I'm correct in assuming that 4 of us feel like that number is close to where we'd like it to be. Am I right there? That it's close to where we'd like it to be? And then, Mark, I know that you want that one fully funded. So I guess the question I have for you is, we've got 36,000 left up there. What would you take from to make that happen? From your perspective?
From my perspective?
Yeah.
Well, there are 2 projects that I would not fund, and that's the ARM 2025 project. I think they'll find a way, and over time, I think we'll get an opportunity to help that concept of what they're doing. And I would not fund staffing a nonprofit that's starting with no funding, no significant funding, and there's no planned stability for that kind of funding. I also believe that people that are discriminated against based on, I hope I got this right, based on
Source of income?
Do have other alternatives. They may not be the educational alternative this one's trying to provide, but they do have alternatives. Do tenants have representation in other areas? Is KU Legal Services still alive?
Yeah.
Okay. There are, anyway.
But they have to know that that exists.
Okay.
And so that's
But I don't
the
think-
objective of Lawrence tenants.
My opinion is that these funds that we're collecting from sales tax, Lawrence, Kansas sales taxpayers, my attitude is they didn't intend that not to go to units on the ground.
So personally, I'm just going to throw it out there that I would be comfortable zeroing out the Lawrence tenants to move the needle somewhere. I personally would not be super comfortable removing the only other item that might have 2-bedroom units. Which, by the way, originally I had a 0 for, which is the, God, now I can't even find it.
Which is
The ARM 2025. I had 0 for that one, but it being is it's the only one that might put a 2-bedroom unit available at a affordable rate, and it's only 5 years, which I also do not love. It's the only other option that might have a 2-bedroom unit, a new one become available. So, yeah, I could pretty comfortably zero out the educator for everyone to make 9 Dell lofts more possible. If there's a way we could not zero out tenants homeowner.
I would not be in favor of that. Just my opinion. I really believe that, this is an opportunity for us to give back to the community in a very powerful and different way, and to set a message that we are committed to community members being informed about their rights, having access to that information that can help us to achieve all of the objectives of the strategy. And I just think providing the seed capacity for a grassroots organization of the community members that we are wanting to serve is one of the best things that we can do.
I just wanted to note also that we have a few folks that are online. We are no longer taking public comment during this time. I just wanted to and let the public be aware of that. We do recognize your comments are important, but we will not be accepting or having public comment at this time.
I'm also going to throw out there that I would be comfortable leaving that one funded for one person. if we're looking at wiggle room, that's one that I am comfortable with.
I wanted to also talk about this too, because I'm not comfortable with zeroing out Lawrence tenants. And I had also, I'm happy that we have it at 70,000 too, because as I'm looking through each of the applications that we have given to all of our applicants, each of the questions, and most of the questions that asked about how will the project advance racial equity, the answers given for the polar lofts and some of the other significant ones that I wrote down was to educate assisting low-income tenants to what their rights are. So each of the projects for polar lofts, the question was, the answer from polar lofts came the same as others that were asked the question of how the project will advance equity. How will your project help to advance what we're trying to produce in this community as far as the AHAB mission and visions are? And that the education was placed upon the renters, and the onus was placed upon the individuals to seek out that education. In my work, I recognize that large-scale education does work in a space of when we're designing a way to advance some education, especially as it pertains to restrictive deeds, restrictive covenants, articles that we have in our community that have placed others in a position of being able to access homeownership and has disallowed our community members to have ownerships. I recognize that education is key. To know your rights, to know how to advocate for yourself and to have others advocate for you. I think Lawrence Tennis is going to do that. And so I support that community engagement to be funded at 70,000. And I actually ask that we consider moving some funds elsewhere. But also considering, we can have a discussion about that, but I like the 70,000. And I would recommend that we keep it solid.
Can I say one more thing real quick?
Yeah.
So, the advancing racial equity question was driving me crazy while I was looking at these applications, because if you are creating apartments and you're saying I'm going to advance racial equity by only making these affordable to a certain demographic of people, that feels like it's not something they can do legally. So I didn't see a way for any new construction to move the needle on racial equity. That said, super important, and you're right, tenants to homeowners is, or not Lawrence tenants, is the only one tackling that, so I appreciate you saying that. If we're looking at additional sources, we do have several places that are doing the home repairs, and I know it's important. The Senior Resource Center does only make theirs available to a certain age group. And so if we're looking for other places to cut funds, that one seems to be higher on the list for me personally, just because there are other places doing the exact same, similar work, very similar work, and it's available to anyone that might need it, as opposed to just the seniors that might need it. So yeah.
So are you suggesting that, and this is up for discussion, that the Senior Resource Center be funded as, recommended to be funded at a smaller amount than the 50,000 that we have here?
Yeah, I mean,
Or weren't you going to add funds to stabilization?
well, right now we've got 36,000,
True.
and
Big money.
and if we're still trying to accomplish increasing the funds on 9 Dell lofts, then unless 436,000 is gonna make
the
that
needle.
thing work, then we could make it 486 by moving that one down.
I like that we're negotiating when we still have monies left remaining, right? But yeah, please, Monty.
So can I make a couple comments? Yeah. I'm not arguing against fully funding anything, but I think too, with these, Nine-Dell lofts, any of the new construction, just because we don't fully fund it doesn't mean it won't still happen.
Sure.
Okay? That just means they have a bigger gap to find funds somewhere else or change the project. So I want to make sure that's clear. Just because we don't fully fund it doesn't mean we've partially funded so many projects that have still been fully executed. So it's important that we fund them because it helps their LIHTC application if they're funded at a certain level. So, and obviously the more local funding there is, the better that looks for LIHTC. So there's no question that we should. And then I wanted to talk about tenants a little bit, Lawrence tenants. We specifically went through the goal process last time. We added a goal through racial and equity, and this is really the only project we have that directly addresses that. So we asked for this.
And we got it.
And we got it.
Yeah, okay.
So to me, it's important to fund it at some level. I'm okay with the one position or whatever, and I certainly have my concerns, and I think it's somewhat of a risk. But I think to some extent we need to take the risk because we asked for this. The other thing I want to reiterate this, I don't want to be in the same place with this program that we have been with the Housing Stabilization Collaboration, where we become their annual funding source, because that doesn't really, but I think, that said, I think funding it 1 year and seeing what the result is definitely a worthy experiment, in my opinion, at whatever level we fund it, so.
Can I comment? Just wanted to bring the board's attention back to the chart regarding what applications, which projects are aligned with the goals that the City Commission has approved in terms of affordable housing and just to take that into consideration as you all are negotiating, and to consider that the Independence Inc., the Senior Resource Center are both directly aligned. We have multiple goals regarding rehabs for people with disabilities and seniors, and that the total for both of those projects is just over 100,000, which is still pretty low compared to, so just to take that into consideration, that both of those projects are in complete alignment with the goals and strategies that the city has set forth.
Is this a play to put 53,000 on Senior Resource Center?
No, I would, if I may, last time we funded Senior Resource Center, the $50,000 lasted 3 years, if I recall correctly. Is that what they said?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one could make an argument that if you went to half, it would fund them for a year, and you would see an application next year.
So just to move us, and we were at 10:32, just to move us to the 11 o'clock hour and just kind of summarizing what we've been able to accomplish within that time. We have $36,000 yet to consider and allocate. I would like for us to throw that money in and then start scaffolding down or up, just so that the remaining balance is at a zero. I love the discussion here, and we can talk about maybe, there's a medium allocation that's suggested for, I was going to say Polar Hills, but we've got few that are fully funded at 75,000, I'm sorry, for Independence Inc. We've got the New Horizons fully funded. A Place for Everyone we've talked about and considered, but do we want to add or increase the Douglas County's Housing Stabilization Collaborative? Do we want to put that 36,000 towards some of the other discussions we've had with ARM? And put that towards there? Do we want to increase the Habitat for Humanity critical home repairs, as we have that at 89,000 and they requested is 100,000? So maybe we can talk about where we're going to place those numbers now, and then consider a finalization of our recommendations.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
We move 89,000 to the 100 requested. We put a total of 450 on 9 Dell lofts, and then the remaining balance on the Senior Resource Center.
There's not that much money left.
Right, but
Okay.
basically what I'm saying is we put 100,000 where the 89,000 is. That leaves us about 25,000. We put the Senior Resource Center's 50 on 9 Lofts, and then put the 25,000 on Senior Resource Center.
Leah, could you reflect?
11,453.
450 on the top.
450,
This is what he's suggesting.
Yep.
Okay.
100 where you have 89,000,
89,000 goes up to 100.
100. And you use senior
Senior Resource Center, 25K,
25.
Which should get them through a year.
which would get them
Yeah.
through a year. Boom. How does everybody feel about that? Where do we need to move?
Well, I shouldn't speak because that'll,
Reasonably uncomfortable. How's that?
which means we probably did our
I don't
job.
know.
I could support that.
I can support this.
Okay. Okay, so as a board, looking at this number, it's our final recommendation.
So I believe I've heard consensus, but I believe we probably need official move and a vote.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and move to approve these recommendations.
did she do all the math over there?
Yeah.
We have a zeroed out balance remaining and 1,200,000 that we have allocated as recommendations finally, right here. So we have a motion to approve or to, approve
have a
this
motion.
recommendation. We have a second, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. I will go down the list. Members, and if approved, say yay. Disapproved, say nay. Mark Bueller.
Aye.
Andrew Gallagher.
Aye.
Christina Gentry, aye. Elizabeth O'Neill.
Aye.
Monty Soko.
Aye.
I believe we have 5 approvals, 1 absentee, or 1 abstain. No, none of that.
None of that.
We have a quorum that has approved the allocation of our final recommendations. Thank you, board. That was cool. Okay, moving forward to item number D on the agenda, quick updates. Affordable Housing Advisory Board Public Comment Procedure.
Oh, welcome back.
Oh, back there, yeah. So we'll have some quick updates, and Leah, please maybe give us a little bit of that update, if you may. The Affordable Housing Advisory Board Public Comment Procedure starting December 2024.
Thank you, Christina. So I met with the chair and vice chair and discussed how to handle public comment in the AHAB meetings, and their recommendation was to align with how the city commission does public comment. So that would be taking general public comment at the very end of the meeting and allowing public comment that is pertaining to the agenda items at the end of each agenda item. If that sounds good to the board, we can implement that in December. If there's discussion, it looks like there's time for a discussion at this time, so.
They're all still limited to 3-minute comment, right?
Correct.
A lot of rationale behind this was because our agendas are so robust, just getting right into business. And so as people are listening to the meeting, obviously that happened today where there was a lot of comment on what was happening. They would have the space to do that on agenda items and then at the end for any general feelings that may arise.
Question, clarification, that public comment would be before we discuss the item or after we discuss the item?
After,
After?
yeah.
Okay.
After discussion, before the vote, if action is needed.
Oh, before a vote?
So, if I may.
Okay.
Madam Chairman. If we're talking about A's and B's, then people, when we're done talking about that, get a right to talk about A's and B's. At the end of the meeting, they can talk about whatever they want. They can talk about awful things, great things, cool things.
Whatever it is.
So that's a miscellaneous public comment at the end. Got it.
That's correct. And I think this is a reflection to be engaged. We know that we have a great commitment to our city to have these to be a conversation. We want engagement, and then we want to afford the public the opportunity to comment. I think it's also in alignment with the city commission's commitment to the policy and procedure. But more conversation on that in our next board meeting in December.
Well, is the AHAB cool with aligning public comment to the city commission starting in December?
But, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Do we need
All
a
right, great.
motion, or are we just cool with it? We don't need a motion to approve?
I don't think so. It's in the
No.
update.
Just a procedure?
Yeah.
Okay, and the second update, December Affordable Housing Advisory Board meeting will be held in the city manager's conference room in Zoom. Leah, could you give a little bit more clarification on location and time for that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry for the switch up. The room will be unavailable during regular business hours starting pretty quickly. So it will not be available during our December meeting. So we will hold the meeting in the city manager's conference room, which is just upstairs. You will need to be let in. So we'll plan on having staff to escort board members, or if it's easier for you, particularly since you need to be escorted up, you may wish to participate via Zoom.
And so next month, we go to Thursday night meetings, is that right? Or is it in January?
We had planned on starting that in January and going and moving forward to the Monday morning meeting unless the board wants to change it.
No, that's fine.
Fine with me.
Okay. All right, and that's it for quick updates. Moving forward to our calendar, December 9th, we have Affordable Housing Advisory Board meeting and tenant experience report, which we had some comments on earlier during our meeting discussion. We'll have in more detail and have that presentation, the report and the community land trust presentation in December. And then moving forward in February, we approve the Affordable Housing Advisory Board annual report. Some good stuff. All right, that is all that we have for this meeting. Do I need a, yep, we were before time. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been first and
Second.
second. And so, Mark Bueller, do you approve
Yes.
the motion to adjourn?
We actually need a motion.
We don't need a
You can
motion.
just adjourn.
Listen. Thank you very much for your time.
Stay if you want, but we're leaving.